The game director for Marvel Rivals trashed Concord, saying it didn't bring any unique value. Roll this up over at fandompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. I encourage you to head on over there, become a paid subscriber, help support us in our journalistic efforts here so you get stories like this. We are fully reader funded. This is all for you. So Thaddeus Sasser is the game director for Marvel Rivals, I can speak, and he trashed Firewalk Studios' Concord, saying it didn't bring any unique value. He did so during an appearance on the Video Gamer podcast ahead of Marvel Rivals' release. Obviously, the game has since released, but we are just kind of discovering this now. And one of the show's hosts brought up the fact that the game was releasing in a crowded market and noted that Concord recently released and was quickly shut down. The host said this: "You're entering a market that is very full of different games. I think one of the cool benefits of Marvel Rivals is that it is offering something that not only no one else can, because no one else has the Marvel license for a hero shooter, but you're also offering something that is entirely unique within its market." And we're seeing a lot of games come out that are likely very similar to other games. Like Concord came out and died very quickly. There's a lot of reasons behind that. Probably it didn't have much marketing. I don't know if I agree with that. I think the game had plenty of marketing. This is all, that's part of like the narrative that Sony wasn't supporting it, that people at IGN were saying, which was just utterly ridiculous. I mean, they spent massive amounts of money on this game. The idea that it didn't have any marketing is preposterous. People didn't gel with the art style. I actually agree with that part. I don't think people like the art style, because the art style came from people who are all about bringing things down, not lifting people up. But at the end of the day, it was another standard hero shooter. And everything I read about it, that seems to be the case as well. Obviously, I think the pronouns that this guy clearly doesn't mention on purpose were also a major factor in it, because it signaled that the game was going to be woke and that they're going to include a lot of woke narratives through their cinematic vignettes that they were trying to hype up. And then we did find out also that a number of the characters, or at least one specifically, was literally inspired by, I think it's a man pretending to be a woman, and even had him come in and do like the voice acting for the character. So they were all on board with that degenerate agenda. And I think that played a massive factor in why that game totally failed. But after the host said that, Sasser chimed in and said this. Yeah, it didn't bring any unique value. And I don't know if he said anything after. It was kind of hard to tell because he kind of talked over the host and it became a little bit garbled. But I don't know if he said proposition or if he said something else after that. But he clearly said, yeah, it didn't bring any unique value. The host then continued, when people already have Overwatch and you're not going to drag people away from Overwatch. And Sasser concurred and explained this: there's a switching cost. I've already invested in Overwatch. I've got 15 skins for Pharah. I'm not going anywhere. And obviously Concord was requiring people to pay, what was it, $40 to come on over. It wasn't even a free-to-play, whereas Marvel Rivals is clearly a free-to-play. And then this was, I found this really interesting. But before we get to that, I mean, clearly dunking on Concord, and rightfully so. It'll be interesting to see if any of the people will be outraged about this, as they were with Daniel Vavra and his comments dunking on Dragon Age the Veilguard. I actually think this is probably going to become more common moving forward, is that we will see game developers pointing to massive failures such as Concord, such as Dragon Age the Veilguard, and using it to promote their upcoming games and saying, look at this absolutely terrible game. Our game is not like that, and you should play our game because we are not doing what these people are doing that you clearly don't like. And I think you're going to see that moving forward. Obviously, we saw it with Daniel Vavra. He compared it to his Kingdom Come Deliverance game, the first one, but clearly also using that as a marketing pitch for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which comes out in the beginning of February. And then clearly Sasser was doing this with Concord, saying that game didn't have any unique value. We are not Concord. We are doing Marvel Rivals. And it seems to have worked out for him. So getting back to the actual conversation he's having here, the host then asked this question: when you're pitching or working on a new free-to-play game in the current market, are there worries that you're not going to grab that crowd? It's quite evident that Marvel Rivals will at least kick off very well, especially considering the massive Discord following and how big those playtests were. Is there a slight worry there? And Sasser said this: as a game developer, you're always worried until the audience has already responded. And the truth is that I don't think anybody can accurately predict this or the game industry would be radically different today. There's a lot of games that come out where people are like, it's going to do well, then it flops, or people come out and go, it's going to flop, and it succeeds amazingly. So I think it's really hard to tell ahead of time, and you're always worried about that. Now, I think there is a little bit of truth to this, but I do think that in many cases, when you look at Concord, it was abundantly clear that the game was going to fail. All you had to do is read through the comments on whatever PlayStation does with their showcase or whatever that they have. Read through the comments on the showcase where it was live. Read through the live reacted comments when they did show it, and then read through the upload of the section of the Concord, and just see people were not interested in that game whatsoever. It was abundantly clear that is what was going to happen. So I think there are obvious factors that you can look to show you that something is going to do poorly. In contrast, I think you can look at other things too. And obviously you can look at the like to dislike ratio and things like that. And then obviously you can also look at things that are going to do well, where you see overwhelmingly positive comments. You see people hyping the game up. You see people talking about it constantly. You have good actual grassroots marketing that is happening, that it's being done for free. It's not being astroturfed like Star Wars Outlaws, where they're flying people out to Disneyland and giving them trips there to try and get these people to hype up the game when there is no actual real interest in the game. I think those are easily understood and seen, and I think that that's not hard to tell when you can see that a game is going to flop like that. Been pretty good at that throughout this year, especially when you're dealing with games such as Star Wars Outlaws, such as Concord. I think Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be the next flop. Look at Dragon Age: The Veilguard. I mean, all of these games that people have predicted to do terribly have done terribly. You look at other games such as Space Marine 2. You look at Black Myth Wukong, etc. Those were also people were pretty easy to tell that those games were going to do pretty well and succeed. I think maybe people thought that Black Myth Wukong wasn't going to do as good as it was, but people knew it was going to do well, but it like exceeded expectations, like absolutely insane how well that game performed. So I do think there's a nugget of truth in this, that obviously you can't actually predict the future. Like, that's impossible to do. But I think that there are ways that you can kind of you can see where things are headed, though, right? So you don't have to necessarily know what the future is, but you can. There are clear indicators on like what is going to happen. And again, I just listed those out. Anyways, he goes on and says, but I think the trick is that you need to have that reason that people want to come play your game. And I think Marvel Rivals does that exactly with the superhero. I don't know about you, but when I heard the concept of the game, I was like, OMG, I want to be Storm in a game. I want to be Doctor Strange in a game. I want to be those heroes in the game. That sounds awesome. And of course, my mind immediately leapt to all the cool possibilities you could have with that. That's what I think will pull people in as well, too. If we've done our jobs well, they'll love that. They'll love what they play, and they'll want to play some more. So I kind of agree with him here, but obviously we have seen a lot of games with the Marvel branding, Marvel licensing not do well, right? You can just look at Marvel's Avengers, which was promising the same thing, but that did not do well. And I think the reason that didn't do well is because their story was absolute garbage, and they were promoting Miss Marvel, and just kind of all aboard that kind of woke Marvel train that was happening at that time. Marvel Rivals doesn't seem to be doing that. I don't know if there's a specific story ongoing with Marvel Rivals. I don't know if there's any kind of narrative or anything like that. If people are following that, I don't know. I have to look into that. But clearly, it's more just like a hero shooter. You pick your character, you go in and you fight each other, right? On these like on your separate teams. So that doesn't have that issue where you're having to deal with a narrative. And then they obviously aren't super promoting a lot of those Marvel Now characters. Obviously, it has done some. There is some of that in there. They race swapped Iron Fist, right? They've got the Chinese Iron Fist, etc., like that. And I think that's clearly being done because NetEase is developing this, etc. So there is a little bit of that, but it's not like you're getting Kamala Khan, right? I don't think she's actually even in this game. It's not like you're getting the Asian Hulk. You're not getting Sam Wilson as Captain America. Those aren't in this game. You get the traditional, for the most part, traditional Marvel heroes Again, obviously, there are some exceptions there, with the Chinese Iron Fist being the most prominent of that. Nevertheless, though, we do know that Marvel Rivals has been a success. 480,999 all-time peak concurrent, and it is still chugging along really well. I mean, look at this curve. Like, it goes down when people go to sleep, it comes back up when they wake up, and then peaks towards the evening, especially here in the United States, East Coast, West Coast, etc. Very nice curve. It literally doesn't even look like it's going down all that much. You can see the past 24-hour peaks still 449, 895. Doesn't look like that trend is going to be changing anytime soon. Now, obviously, this is a free-to-play game, so these numbers aren't necessarily determinant of whether or not this game is a financial success. We saw with XDefiant recently, I think they did like 15 million uniques or something like that. And we do know that Marvel Rivals did 10 million players in 72 hours. And we saw something similar again with XDefiant earlier in the year. And they shut that game down within 6 months. So it has a lot more to do with how are they monetizing this game? Are people actually spending money on it, or are they just playing it right now? And what is the longevity going to be? And that is the real challenge. I think that they'll probably do fine with this. They do seem to be the #1 hero shooter now. I think Overwatch 2 is kind of trailing off. I think Overwatch 2's concurrent peak is only like 72,000 or something like that. So they like blew that out of the water. And so it'll be really interesting to see how they monetize this stuff. Obviously, I don't think there's any kind of, there might be some like gacha mechanics or something like that. Again, I haven't played this game, so I don't know. But I don't really play hero shooters. They're just not like my cup of tea. But so I think that really is what will determine this game's success, is how well it does monetize. We know that gacha games can monetize really well. One needs to look no further than the Hoyoverse stuff, Honkai Star Rail, Genshin Impact, Zenless Zone Zero, etc. Those are all, like, just bring in absolute gangbusters of money every single month. So I think Marvel Rivals will be able to do that too. We see the Pokemon, the trading card game just launched, and it's doing like crazy numbers as well. The mobile game, etc. Pokemon Go is still doing really good there. So it's not, and those aren't like the Pokemon Go isn't a gacha. So there's obviously different ways to monetize outside of gacha, and it'll be interesting to see how Marvel Rivals does with their monetization. And I think that will really determine how well this game does perform. But everything right now looks like it is doing really, really well. The complete opposite of Concord, which was shut down after 2 weeks. I don't even remember I don't even think it got over like 1,500 or something like that, if memory serves. Maybe did it get over 900? It was something like abysmally low. The player counts were just absolutely atrocious. But I think the big takeaway here is that we're seeing developers dump on woke games and point out that they are not good in order to sell their games. And I think that is a very interesting trend that we should be following. And I approve of it, because these developers should be pointing out that these games that are woke failures are indeed failures. I'd love to actually see them say, like, this game is a failure because it is woke. But baby steps, I guess, right? Baby steps. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.